Welcome to the September 28, 2017 Piqua City Schools School Board meeting. Will the treasurer call the roll, please?
Mr. Bostic.
Here.
Mr. Luby.
Here.
Mr. Height.
Here.
Mr. Gregerson.
Here.
Mr. Patrizio.
Here. Would everybody please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everybody, and board members, the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 31st, 2017 regular meeting. Can I have a motion, or has everybody reviewed the minutes? Are there any changes to the minutes? I have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. It's item number 5. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda, or does anybody have any changes to the agenda? I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Height or Mr. Luby, the board report for the Upper Valley Career Center.
Okay, that'd be me.
All right.
The Upper Valley Career Center Board of Education met on Tuesday, September the 18th. And the big news around the Career Center recently has been the visit of the German exchange students. 5 students and their advisor arrived in Piqua last week, and they'll be here until October the 4th. They visited various businesses, classes, and labs, and they spent most of their time doing those type of activities. Now, the Upper Valley Career Center is very interested in the German apprenticeship program because of the strong apprenticeship program currently in place at the Career Center. Congressman Jim Jordan and Warren Davidson were present and welcomed the students, and also Mayor Casey Hines, all part of welcoming to the United States. As part of this same program, Upper Valley career students will visit Germany in late October. It'll be kind of an exchange program. They'll have the same opportunity to go to Germany, visit factories, classes, businesses, to see how they function and bring that back to the United States. So all in all, very good program, and it really involves a lot of interested people. The German students, of course, have to have sponsored families here for them to stay with, so that was part of the deal that the Upper Valley Career Center find people willing to take these students in for that period of time. Also, Dr. Luce also reported the Cornerstone Restaurant, which, by the way, if you haven't eaten there, it's worth a try. It's really good. The students operate it in the food service area, in the food service program. They do a fantastic job, provide delicious meals. It'll open on October the 18th, and every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday it's open from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Also, Dr. Luce reminded everyone the Upper Valley Career Center was part of the Hurricane Harvey relief effort, and obviously a very important thing with what's going on in our country at this time. Additionally, the board we were given details of a requested van purchase, which was approved by the board, and also the board approved a copier lease agreement, approved textbooks, and accepted donations at that meeting. And the next meeting of the Career Center Board will be on Monday, October the 23rd. That's it.
Thank you. And I would agree with Cornerstone. That is a good place to go. They're only open for lunches, though. Is that correct?
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
are they open every day?
11:30 to 1, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
If you get a chance, go out and eat
It's
there.
worth
It's
a
very
stop.
good.
Worth a stop. The Reuben sandwich last year was fantastic. I'll attest to that. Now, I don't know if they have it this year, but I'd make a commercial for them for that Reuben sandwich.
I think you did.
Yeah. I didn't smile enough, though, to do a commercial. I need to smile more.
We need to get you a Reuben sandwich
There you go.
on the football thing, and you can do
Show me eating a
commercial for
Reuben
'em.
sandwich? Okay.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
On the jumbo
There we
screen.
Hey,
Jumbotron.
the longer we talk, the more ideas come forward here.
Do we have the hearing of the public on agenda items? I do not have any notices that anybody is going to speak. I will say something real quick. Early voting starts next month. We have 2 board members we have 2 people that are running on the ballot and 2 people running as write-ins. For the people writing that are on the ballot, if you wish to vote for them, all you have to do is check their name. On the write-ins, you actually have to know who is running, hit the write-in button and write their name in or type their name in. I believe you type their name in. So that's coming up. I encourage everybody to go out and vote. We also have a levy coming up of our own, and I think the superintendent is going to talk about that in a little bit also. So we'll move on to treasurer's items, treasurer's agenda. Mr. Hiddle?
Good evening. Has anybody got any questions for the monthly reports that were attached? The FY18 appropriations are in there as well, and this year we've appropriated $35.5 million in the general fund, but an overall budget of $46 million this year. So it's down from past years because the construction stuff is no longer on there, and that used to take up a huge chunk of that number. So any questions about the appropriations?
No, thank you.
Salary adjustments are on here as well, and tuition reimbursement. And one of the things that we do normally do is have the board approve the efficiency incentive. That was given in July, and I went back and found that we didn't do that in July, so I just want to make sure that we still vote on that. But we had approved to do that. It's part of our contract, negotiated contract, but just to bring it to the board's attention. Those are all the things I have. If there's any questions.
You know, there's one item that's not on the agenda and we talked about a little bit is you've worked with Honeywell and
It's on down.
It's on
Yep.
further down. Never
Yep.
mind. We'll talk about that later on. Anybody have any questions about or to the treasurer about the agenda items? Comments? Things are rolling along fairly well again this year. We hope to have another good year, and thank you for your work. May I have a motion to approve the treasurer's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Will the treasurer please call the roll?
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye.
Mr. Bostic.
Aye.
Very good. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. This month, we are holding the board meeting here at Washington Primary, and as with each month, we always have the principal of the building come forward and give us an academic progress report. And it's my pleasure to introduce our new principal this year at Washington, Tracy Troglin, and her assistant, Shannon Pence. And they'll be talking to us a little bit about what's going on, and if you have other members to bring up, please introduce them to the crowd, if you would.
Okay. It's just us two.
Okay.
Hello. I am so excited to share some information with you this evening. I feel so blessed to be the new principal here at Washington. This is a great school district with dedicated staff who really focus on student needs. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's been fabulous. I would like to share with you a little bit about our building goals. Our first goal is to improve K-3 literacy with a focus on Tier 1 instruction. We are currently working on a balanced literacy plan, which includes working with the 2 literacy coaches. Mrs. Watts and Mrs. Watson have been presenting information of a different focus each month. For example, this month we're working on improving the readers workshop portion of our English language arts instruction. This includes teaching students how to choose just right books and how to read for a purpose. Teachers will teach a short mini lesson with a specific focus while building on prior knowledge. The students will have independent reading time, during which time the teacher will conference one-to-one with the students and see how each student is applying their learning. Next, students will close by sharing their learning with their peers. Our second goal is to focus on teacher-based teams in response to intervention process. During our weekly teacher-based team meetings, the teachers are bringing student data that is aligned to standards and our literacy focus that I just spoke to you about. The teachers are following the 5-step process, which includes looking for strengths and weaknesses, sharing different teaching strategies to meet the needs of all students, setting goals, and then monitoring progress toward those goals. Included in the discussions are classroom teachers, title teachers, intervention specialists, other support staff, and then the principals. This process helps our students at both the Tier 1 whole group and Tier 2 small group instruction. Some of our students need more intensive intervention in order to meet grade level expectations, so we've been using the response to intervention, or RTI framework, which includes finding the most basic concept the student is struggling with, developing a specific measurable goal, and then monitoring progress toward that goal. Because the goal is so specific, in most cases, students and teachers are working one-to-one with research-based strategies. Working together with parents is important in this process, so we are getting parents included in developing this. Recently, a team of teachers attended a training to learn more about the RTI process. On a side note, we are very pleased with our state assessment scores from last year in reading and math. In reading, 91.6% of the students passed, and in math, 77.3%. Our target is 80% for both. So although we continue to strive to improve, I did want to take just a brief moment to say what a great success that is. And I'm now going to turn the microphone over to Mrs. Pitts.
Good evening. One of our other goals, or our third goal that we're focusing on here, is our positive culture for our staff and our students here at Washington. We're excited about the many ideas that we plan to move forward with this year. Mr. Kaufman came over from PCS and got our staff excited and our committee excited about some of the additional things we can do here with our students to really bring them together as a family and build that positive culture. We're currently using punch cards as a reward system for showing respect, responsibility, and kindness in our building, and so students can earn punches. All of our staff members are involved, our custodians, our bus drivers, our cooks, our secretaries, all of our aides and our teachers in either punching the card or passing out a ticket to earn a punch. These cards can get them small little rewards and small increments, like a piece of candy or a pencil. They can get invited to our bigger rewards parties where we have activities, and then even some larger prizes that we get together. One of the things our students also put together at the end of last year, and our kids actually wrote these and then voted on them as a group, was a pledge, so that in the morning after the Pledge of Allegiance, we would have a pledge to remind them of those expectations that we expect to see throughout our building. And so over on our wall there, we do have our RRK pledge. And so all our students know this. They can tell you what they're supposed to do in each of our common areas to be respectful and responsible and kind. And so we're really working on that everywhere with all of our kids, and it's been a great addition to that, pumping them up. We are also working on, you'll see some signs throughout the community here soon, rewarding the Student of the Month with a sign for their yard and a special recognition here at school for those that really are exemplars in being respectful and kind and responsible. Our PBIS committee is looking at the Public Works data and also our positive report data so that we can reflect on what areas we need to take more attention to or what changes we need to make to really instill those characteristics in our kids throughout their day so that we can help mold them into the respectful citizens that Piqua can really be proud of. So those are our three main goals that we're focusing on here at Washington, and Tracy and I have already met with our Parent Advisory Council, and we are also meeting in the next week or two with our business partners so that we can make this more of a larger reach out to the community with our parents and volunteers in promoting these things within our building. So thank you very much for your support and helping us.
Thank you.
Any questions or?
Are we going to do, I don't know if this one's to you guys, are we doing the new report cards at primary, the new system?
Not yet.
Okay.
They're working on that.
Because I know last year we were preparing people for that. I just wonder when.
Yep, they're still working through that process.
Okay.
Yes, and our teachers are working on that very hard with our TBTs and also a committee that will be working closely with our curriculum directors, Teresa Anderson and Scott Bloom, on finalizing those details so that we can move forward with that.
Thank you for your time
Thanks.
Thank you.
and your report.
Speaking of report cards, the state report card came out about, I don't know, 8 days ago or so, and we're pleased with a lot of the growth that we made in the areas, and I wanted to highlight some of those at this time. So one of the scores is the performance index. Performance index allows the state to report how high students are performing on the test. So an advanced student gets a higher percentage than, let's say, a basic student or a limited student. Last year, we had a 65.4%. This year, we grew to 68.9%. We're at a D category now. We're 1 point away from getting that C. So we're going to strive to get that for sure this year as we try to move that up. On indicators met, we got an F in that category. 490 schools out of 609 schools got Fs in that category this year, so 80% of the school districts got an F in that category. Partly, most districts believe because they raised that passage rate to 80% this year from last year's scores. So one of the things we do is we like to compare ourselves to what we call similar districts. The state puts together a top 20 list of schools that are most like us, and that's based on student demographics, town demographics, financial types of things, economically disadvantaged. So we like to compare ourselves to those similar schools because they're facing the same types of situations that we are, and all the schools in that category got Fs as well. So we're going to continue to grow in that area. We did grow considerably a lot this year. For example, our third grade math went up 15.7%, and third grade reading 12.1%, fourth grade reading 10.7%, fifth grade was 14.4%. So we got a lot of double-digit numbers where we're growing in those percentages. So we believe we're going to continue to do that, as well as many districts. That 80% should not move now. It was a moving target the last 2 years, the state did, but it should stay at 80% right now, and most districts feel pretty good about trying to work toward that now. Get that there. So the next thing would be our gap closing. Gap closing looks at 10 different categories of students. So it considers all students a category, American Indian group, Asian Pacific, Black students, Hispanic, multiracial, white, economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and limited English students. Students can qualify for more than one category, so they could be white, they could be a student with disabilities, and they could be also economically disadvantaged. So whatever that student gets, they could qualify in different categories. If one of your groups does not meet the standard, you are automatically eliminated from earning an A in that category. So it's a hard group to get. You have to really kind of watch all the students. Because they can qualify for different fields, in our district, we worry about every kid. We don't try to pull a certain subpopulation out and work on. We really try to make sure every student's getting what they need. We grew considerably in this category last year. We went from 16.8 to 49.9, which is a nice growth statistically. Our hardest group that we're working with right now is our disabilities group. We have the lowest scores in that area, and Amy Todd, our Director of Student Services, is spending a lot of time out in the buildings this year working directly with teachers, providing that intervention with them right there on the spot to get that group to work a little bit harder on reaching those scores. In our similar school districts, out of the 22 districts got Ds, 1 got a C, and 17 got Fs. So you can see the challenges that we're facing with the kind of students that we're dealing with demographically. The third grade literacy component, we grew from a 33.4% last year to a 47.8%. We were at a D category last year and bumped that up to a C, so we're real pleased that we got that up a letter grade. Our biggest challenge with this is it looks at students from fall kindergarten through first grade fall. So we get that whole gap in the summertime. So we get a lot of growth with our students. A lot of the information that we use to track progress will show that they've made that gain. They have all that summertime where we lose, and then they come back and get tested in the fall. And if we can't validate that they're still at a first grade level, we really lose a lot of points there. Same thing from first to second grade, second to third. So continuing to work on some summer reading programs to prevent that summer reading loss. We had the bookmobile this summer with Teresa Anderson going out with volunteers and just getting books in kids' hands and trying to keep that program going so we can get those kids reading over the summer months. Our progress piece was the greatest component on our report card. We got straight A's in that category. So we got an A for all students in the school improving. Our gifted students improved significantly. Our students with disabilities improved significantly, as well as the students that fell in the lowest percent of the state. So the state identifies across the state the lowest 20% of students. If any of our students fall in that category, they are listed in that group as well. We got straight A's, which again shows that we had significant growth with each one of those. Looking at like schools, we were one of 3 schools that had straight A's. In our county, we were one of 2 school districts that had straight A's in that category. So showing the most growth with those kiddos was a great piece for us to be able to do. Our graduation rate, last year, our 4-year graduation rate was at 85.9. We grew that to 87.5. Our 5-year graduation rate went down. It went from 92 to 89%. We ended up with a C in that category. Attendance seems to be one of our greatest concerns right now, getting our seniors to come to school, being there at a regular time, and being able to get those end-of-course exams in place. So we're working on some different things with that. Senate Bill 410 came out this year. That's putting some new restrictions on us in terms of what we can do with attendance. Mrs. Gearhart, as well as our principals, are working diligently on trying to learn that new legislation and how we can deal with it to hold students and parents accountable for the attendance they need to show. What are we doing to work on some of this? So over the summer, principals met with cabinet members. We're looking at our Tier 1 instruction. Tier 1 is our evidence-based instruction that we put in place with every student. You heard me talk about that gap closing and how every student counts. So we looked at last year's teacher evaluations. We identified the weakest areas that we felt our teachers rated in. We kind of calibrated ourselves. We tried to make sure principals were evaluating and rating teachers consistently across the district. And then we look at those weak areas and try to figure out how do we provide the intervention for teachers, the professional development, and so on. How do we collect ongoing data to make sure students are improving in that area? And we implemented some of that this year, and it's ongoing throughout this whole year. Our monthly meetings with principals reflects on that data, talks about the growth that we're making and the professional development that we're putting in place. We are working on profiles for our K through 3 students with reading and math. So we're going to start with our 3rd grade teachers. We're going to ask them, what exactly does a 3rd grade reader look like? What skills do they exactly need to be able to not only pass a test, but to read successfully? So we're going to create what that looks like, and that will give us better descriptions to talk to parents about, to talk to students about, so they know exactly what level they should be at, what a sample looks like, what an exemplar looks like, et cetera. So we're working on those pieces. Again, we're focusing on the attendance pieces. We met with principals the following Monday as soon as the data came out. We reviewed all of their building goals. They set new benchmarks for this year and talked about how they're rolling this out with their staff. So we spent a whole day talking about that. And finally, I don't see Scott Bloom, but Scott Bloom, one of our curriculum directors, did a report, an item analysis on all the tests. Since this is the 2nd year they've got the test in place, they've released item analysis, which shows the kinds of questions our students aren't doing well in. So for the first time, we can look at what kind of content the students are lacking and what kinds of questions the students just aren't doing well. If it's a written, kind of a written question or 3-part questions, those kinds of things. So it's giving teachers the ability to look at specific pieces that helps them instruct their students on how to take those tests properly. Other than that, I think that's it. Any questions on our report card?
When we hired you, you talked about improvement, and you had set out, you saw where we were, and you wanted to improve it over a period of 5 years.
Yep.
Is that correct? Are you where you would like to be as far as after your 1st year?
Absolutely. You might, again, if you look and see our gap closings enough, it was, but 16.8% was a low F, and that was our 1st year when I came in. That was the data that came in to that point. So growing that to 49% is a really significant growth. And what we did was we created what I call like a stair-step visual. The principals last year wrote down what their first baseline data was, and then they projected where they wanted to be this year. And then they put in all kinds of interventions and plans last year, and many of them realized those growth points this year. So next year, they're going to be shooting for that next one. And our first goal was to get rid of all Ds and Fs. We got rid of 1 D. We still have a couple Fs. They were low, so it's going to take us a while to get out of that. There's no way we could have realized over 1 year's time getting rid of all of them based on what our ratings were last year. So we're definitely progressing, and I think we're moving in the right direction.
A comment and a question.
Okay.
First of all, I'm pleased with the improvement. Because, my stance
Yep.
before, it was really bothersome to me to see us where we were with our test scores. And to see improvement now just gives me a much, much better feeling. The question, you mentioned the graduation rate and attendance hurt. Is that attendance factored into that?
Well, it is in the way that a lot of times seniors get to that point and they don't always want to give seat time. And if they're not there getting that instruction, that hands-on pieces, those intervention pieces, the high school's done a great job of putting advisory periods in so students that are struggling can get with their teachers and get like almost one-on-one instruction and intervention. If they're not there taking advantage of those kinds of things, we can't help them pass the end of course exams. And those are critical to us getting those points.
Okay,
So-
so it's not a check mark based on the percentage of attendance, and it's the fact that you're not there, so you're losing the
We need-
opportunity
yep.
to learn.
We need them there so we can capture those moments with them.
And with the graduation rate, at one time, it was factored in when students leave the district.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts us if they just withdraw.
Correct. If they go to another district, that district picks up that responsibility of working with them. If they withdraw and don't go to school and no other school picks them up, we lose that kid. If we get a student from another district that maybe comes the junior year, it's our responsibility to pick up that student and take them to the level of graduation. So if they come from, I'll make up a town like Sydney, if they come from Sydney and they're credit deficient, it becomes our responsibility to get that student caught up on all their credits and get them to graduate within that 4-year mark. So some of those things are out of our hands in terms of what we get if a student moves here.
That seems a little unfair. Of course, we don't make the rules, I know that, and
Right,
there are some other things that would be categorized unfair also, but we have to play by those rules.
yeah.
Uh,
Graduation, our graduation rate, there's a lot we can do. And I can tell you, you talk to Mr. Messick, sometimes it feels like we have too many programs out there to help, but they do a great job of trying to meet the diverse needs of the students. But to me, it's not just a school district kind of responsibility, because again, we need parents helping us get those kids into the programs. And I know just already this year, we've had counselors having conversations with parents in terms of just listing and showing them, here's kind of the menu of options we have to help your kid. We need you to pick one and then embrace it and work with us to maintain that so we can get them what they need. So getting those credits caught up again and getting them to school so they get that solid instruction, those good advisory periods, making up those credits so that they can really graduate on time.
I am a firm believer that part of our problem in this district is that some kids do not have positive parental guidance at home. I think parents, if you have kids, it's your responsibility to take care of them. From a very young age, I think probably everybody up here had kids, read to their kids, made sure their homework was done, and made sure they went to school. It amazes me when I go out to the high school and see all the parents who can get their kids to a sporting event or to sports practices, and will spend hours and hours and hours there making sure they are there, but will not make sure they come to school. Parents, you have a responsibility, and it's not that your kid's going to be a superstar athlete. Over the last 20 years, we may have had 5 superstar athletes, maybe 6. We have probably had a lot of people who have graduated, who have become doctors, who have become engineers, who have been very successful in life because they use their brain. And a lot of parents miss that part, and I'm sorry to say that in our district, it's a problem.
To that point, we've talked to a lot of former students that were great students as well as great athletes, and they went to college and found out sports wasn't what they wanted to do, or maybe they got injured and couldn't fulfill that, so they were always very thankful that they had put that time into their education because they were able to get that degree that they really went to college for. So it's true. Kids have to put that education piece, parents have to put that education piece first and foremost, and then let those extracurriculars be that motivation to stay focused and keep in the programs.
I think extracurriculars are great.
Yeah.
But I think some parents think that's the reason why we exist. We don't exist for extracurriculars. We exist to educate our students. And there's an element of our population out there that they don't think that way. And unfortunately, I asked the teachers and staff to make them realize that, and the community.
You know, going along with what Frank said, do we need to do a better job of promoting our students who have gone on and moved along in their careers to a high level. Nobody ever hears about that. They don't
Yeah.
hear about the kids that are college grads and out in the world doing all kinds of things. Maybe we need to find out, somehow keep tabs on those
Sure.
kids, and maybe do an article or even a list of,
The Piqua Education Foundation does a little bit of that. One of the things I'm working on kind of behind the scenes right now, and I've talked to a few alumni, I'm trying to get some alumni at different generations. We're starting to work on researching a Piqua alumni group. A group that will get together and recognize all of our graduates and highlight some graduates of the year and try to show kids over time what really has graduated from our high school and the impact they're having on the world, because we've got people all around the world doing amazing things, and people don't know that. And sometimes I hear something about a former student, and I'm amazed. I'm privileged to be able to, the class that's celebrating their 50th reunion this Saturday has invited me to come to their reunion, and I'm excited about it because we just had the greatest conversation on the phone, and they started telling me things that they've done in their careers after they graduated high school, and I didn't know some of those things, and it's just going to be really interesting to talk to more of them, but to also get that whole picture out there. So we're kind of researching what other alumni groups are doing, how we can get that started. The biggest challenge is Facebook, because there are Facebook pages that have started with about every class, and some people think that's that piece, and it does help that class stay together, but we're looking at really making our alumni association a bigger group that really, again, shows that pride of being a Piqua graduate and what that looks like.
and I don't think we should forget about the kids that maybe did not go to college and graduate, but have turned into a
Absolutely.
person with a successful career doing something else. I think those
Many
people are
examples of that.
just as important.
And great examples of military as
Yeah.
well. And that's again what we're looking at. A lot of alumni associations spend that time highlighting their graduates and focusing on that. And to me, that's more important than anything else we could get from our alumni association, is really showing the pride that we have in them and what they've done after they've graduated and left our doors from being prepared through our system.
We have guys from Piqua High School who are working on the high school right now and the repair of it, and they graduated around the time I did. I talked to a couple of them. They were so proud about the work they are doing. They have a certain skill set. Everybody,
Sure.
One of the things I get irritated with the legislators is they think everybody should go to college. Believe me, I think everybody should get further education. But some people are born to be carpenters and plumbers and electricians, and these guys are brick masonaries, and they do a beautiful job. And they have so much pride, and you can tell by just talking to them about how they're repairing that building, and
Yeah.
it's
They have a lot of
something
skill.
Yeah,
They have a lot
and
of
they are
skill.
very good
Yeah.
at it too.
Several years, or maybe it's been 3 or 4 years ago, you made the point at a meeting that we need to start with the younger kids to pick them up, and I think that we need to let people realize that we have to build on that, and the growth that you're experiencing isn't going to happen overnight. And as we get the skills on the lower levels, and what we're talking about tonight with the reading skills, that's crucial, and people need to see that
Yeah.
we can't do that tomorrow. It's going to take a lot, and I think we're headed the right direction now.
To me, one of the greatest gauges, again, I've shared this with Belinda, sometimes our local media, they'll put the county results out, and it's because, the county wants to see, how they compare and so on. But the demographics between all the communities are so different, and that's why, to me, the similar districts is so important to look at, because the state, again, pulls that group together and says, here's the school that's the most like you. In our case, Sydney is the most like us demographically by city and by students. And then they work their way down, and most of those districts stay about the same. I bring that up because it's a good gauge. We are not far off from the similar districts at all that have the same types of students with the same backgrounds, et cetera. They're dealing with the same kinds of things we are. We're either above the average in that group, sometimes we're at the top. Like looking at progress, we had straight A's. We were one of 3 districts that was in that top group. So we fared very well with the districts that look just like us. If you were to average our grades out, we would actually be 3rd from the top with the county. Now, different studies look at different things. For example, the Dayton Daily News put out something that was based on just performance index. the top 40 schools in the Miami Valley, it was just one category. We didn't make that, but other schools that are on this list made it, even though we had across the band a lot higher, grades. So I think we fared very well. I think when if you're going to compare, I don't compare for any reason other than to look at, are we making reasonable growth? And I think we most certainly are when you look at our similar districts. We are, again, either above average or we are right where we need to be in terms of what other districts are facing. When 490 schools out of 609 get an F in indicators met, that tells you something. In fact, the state averages on their report card, the state did not get one indicator, not one indicator. So we're doing okay, and we're going to continue to take this information and we're going to grow with it. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to make sure we are growing in these areas because we owe that to our students and our community. We're going to do it appropriately, and we're going to take those steps that we can.
Dwayne, to add on to what you just said, it's hard not to compare, though,
Sure.
because
Yep.
of the publicity all this stuff gets.
Yeah.
And it's a natural feeling people have, just like when you look at standings in the Major League Baseball. You see the Reds at the bottom, you compare them to the rest of the league, say, man, they're not worth anything, It's a natural human instinct, and I think we have to worry about Piqua and striving to get Piqua to the highest level we can. And if people want to compare us, I guess they'll compare us.
Sure.
I've struggled with this a long time. You know how I felt.
Yep.
I've talked to you.
And we will.
Yeah.
I would put it into perspective still, though. It's one test. This
Oh, yeah.
consumes an enormous amount of time and resources. It's one test. If a teacher gave one test in the year and based her whole success out of that year on that one test, most people would say that's silly. Yet we do that with this state test. And, there are 180 days of instruction that happen with lots of great things happening all year round. And we just can't forget those things too. We got to make sure we highlight those and let people know that there's just a lot of good things happening. This is important, and again, we'll work on it. I'm not degrading it in any way. It's just putting it in the perspective and the realm of all the work that we're doing. When you're out in the buildings as much as I am and you see what they're doing, it's amazing stuff every day, so.
How many people do you think understand those test results? In this county, what percentage of people, when you pick up the paper, I'm guessing it's a small percentage that people could really interpret that.
Well, to put it in perspective, when we get it, we have to look at some of it, and it changes every year. So they're already making changes to next year's report card. So benchmarks move, targets move, reasons why scores are the way they are move. Again, we talked about how this is the first year they're releasing item analysis. So last year, we got test results. We got no information about what our kids did well or not well on. We had no clue. So all districts were working blindly at what do we do to improve our scores because there was no feedback. The old state test, every year they would release all the information. Here's what kids are doing well in, what they're not doing in. You knew if it was writing, you knew if it was certain standards, so you could kind of beef it up. We had nothing. So you just have to work through it. And I can tell you when it comes out, I still go back and I review, what does this mean? What do we need to do? The first thing when you get it, when you see an F, it kind of punches you in the gut, but then you have to get in there and look, did we make gains? Did we make growth? How close are we to the next piece? What do we have in place that's working? That's one of the questions we ask the principals. What really worked well last year and what are we going to keep doing? What do we need to tweak now and what do we need to just go that whole new direction and stretch? And they had great analysis of their data. And they already started working with their staff and got their teacher ideas, and I'm really proud of what they've done. I mean, I'm really proud of the growth that our people made. And again, we're right where we need to be, I think. So we'll keep working on it.
I just wanted to say that I was at the high school on Monday. They did the Rachel's Challenge.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, if you guys ever have the opportunity, Scott came, I know he's not here tonight. If you really want to get a snapshot of what our people are dealing with and what the kids are dealing with, it was a very, very interesting experience. I would encourage anybody to do that if you have the opportunity. And Rob, I know it's sure does give you a snapshot.
I mean, that puts it into perspective. We're going to be working on our strategic plan this year because it's due. I don't know we've ever looked really at the whole child. So our students are facing a lot of things. You know, there's a drug crisis. We've had students lose parents. We've got, you know, bullying is a national kind of conversation that we're working through. You've
We've got kids that aren't living at homes.
we do. We have homeless
They're out of
situations.
their homes where
And
the parents are not.
it's hard to look at some of
addressed.
those kids and say, I really need a test score out of you when they're dealing with so many other things. So when we get into that strategic plan and start looking at what we need to do for the whole child, again, putting this into perspective, there's a lot of programming and things we need to look at to support that whole student so that when they do leave, they do those great things that Frank talked about and become alumni that go out there and they're successful in the world. The test score really isn't going to show if they're ready for the world. It's not going to get a kid ready for college or a job. All those extra things that our principals and teachers are doing will do that. So we got to really kind of keep that going as well and provide those supports and programs up that will, you know, support those students and the families. Speaking of great news, Mr. Messick, the high school principal, just learned something, I believe, yesterday, and I asked if he would share it tonight. This is fantastic news, actually, so I'm going to have him come forward and talk a little bit about something he just found out about.
Yeah, as we're talking about successes, I just got a letter in the mail the other day recognizing Cameron Brown. Cameron Brown's one of our seniors. He is the National Merit Scholar. He is a commended student. And what they do is they take a test called the pre-SAT. And 1.6 million students took the test. And he's in the top 34,000. So those are some big numbers, but that's really impressive. And so he did not make it to the very top where they go on to the national exam, but he was in that next group of being recognized. So it's a tribute to obviously him, his family, and the teachers that have worked with him throughout. So we're very proud of it. Matter of fact, he was very humble. He's like, so what does all this mean? And so Mr. Williams was there to help me out to explain how important this was. So we're trying to figure out how many kids we've had in this situation. We're kind of backtracking and looking. But like I said, great news, super news. We're very excited for him.
That is outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Messick. I've asked Mr. Hare to come forward. We have had a great week of a lot of spirit, a lot of fun. It's homecoming week. The homecoming dance is coming up, and we had some great success already on the field in some of our sports programs this week, and we've got a big rivalry game coming. So just asked if he would talk a little bit about some of the great things that are happening and what's to come here.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. It is Sydney week and homecoming week. Hey, Mr. Height, you've got a bee on you. You want to swat that thing? Yes, just swat it. Yeah. Come on, Mr. Height. It is homecoming week and Sydney week. You will find, if you come out to the school and on Indian Trail, a lot of spirit, a lot of red, white, and blue in particular. To Sydney, we started something new with them this fall that will go through the whole year. Football has gotten a lot of attention, particularly when they have a traveling trophy, as Sydney and Piqua has for the years, called the Battle of the Battered Helmet. We'll see about that more tomorrow night, but we wanted to come up that would include all sports, fall, winter, and spring, so that everybody would have an opportunity to be a part of something that was special and bigger than them. So the athletic director from Sydney and myself came up with a system that would include a traveling all-sports trophy between the two schools. So this is the first year, and the way it essentially goes is every game you get a point, and the first school to reach 11.5 points based on all the schools or all the sports that we have in all 3 seasons wins that trophy. As it stands right now, today, it is 4-4. We are locked in at 4 apiece. A couple notable points, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, the soccer team has had a lot of success this year, particularly the boys soccer team. This past Tuesday, we played Sydney at home and snapped a 17-year losing streak. I think if I can quote the great Mr. Schofstall, the last time that we beat them, our boys were not even born yet, and if they were in diapers. So that was a great win for the Indians. So we are at 4 apiece. Now, to show you that rivals can live together and work together, tomorrow night you will also see what we call the Blue Out, and that is a collaboration event between our 2 student leadership groups at Sidney and Piqua high schools and the communities. We have a former graduate and a mother of one of our senior volleyball players, Michelle Garber, was diagnosed with colon cancer. And so at the volleyball game a couple weeks ago when Piqua and Sidney played, we honored her, and we're going to honor her tomorrow night with a check of T-shirts that were essentially given to both schools. Sidney had white for their color, and we had blue. And T-shirts have been sold, and we're going to come together and wear those shirts tomorrow night. You'll see rally towels in the stands, white and blue, and we're going to come together and give her a check. And I think it shows that while we are also we're competitive, we also can show great sportsmanship. So that will take place in between the first and second quarter tomorrow night. And of course, the football game tomorrow will be homecoming. A lot of festivities going throughout the week. There's been a lot of spirit. Of course, the dance is Saturday night. But the game will take place tomorrow. Sidney is pretty good this year. They're 5-0. They're state ranked. I would anticipate a very large crowd. And in fact, I've heard a couple people use the word close to sellout. That's exciting. It's exciting not just for our kids, but I think it's also exciting for our communities because we're going to get an opportunity to spotlight those. So great things happening within Piqua City Schools, and just great and happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Mr. Hare,
forget
I've been
that.
to several games this year, and one of the things that has been really neat to see is the students and their cheer sections. And there are seniors and juniors and sophomores who are going to about every sporting event, whether it's football, soccer, volleyball, and have just had a lot of fun cheering on their teams, and it's been good. And I went to Sidney Piqua girls volleyball team, and that was the one with Michelle Garber. The Sidney kids were fun. It was
Right.
nice to see kids just having a nice time and enjoying the sport, and that's what it's really about.
The student sections there have been a lot of energy, as you said, Mr. Petruzio, and I think that will continue. It's nice to see that our kids care not just about football or soccer. They're coming out in groves to all of them. So we hope that continues. In fact, we met with our student section today about the upcoming year and basketball season and winter sports, and it's nice to see that we are Piqua spirit, loud and proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Couple more quick things. Our 5th grade students from Piqua Central went to camp the last couple weeks to Glen Helen, had a great time. The last group will be coming back tomorrow. The camp reports outstanding behavior from our students, and I was able to go there one night this week as well as Mr. Hiddle. We had the greatest time ever, and they're learning a lot of great things, a lot of hands-on things out there in the woods. We had our 4th grade at Johnson Farm with Mr. Height this week and Mr. Gregerson, and they equally shared some good reports on.
It was a good week. We enjoyed the kids very much. We had 3 days of Piqua 4th graders, and they were very attentive. There were some interesting observations in some of the discussions we had, and I think we're headed the right direction. A good group of kids. One of the things I noticed now that we're putting everybody in one intermediate building, you see a big change in the family sense of the students.
Yeah.
It's a nice growth.
Nice.
The kids did a great job. I was really, it's really nice to be able to talk to kids and tell them about the stuff, and they're participating, and they're coming in pretty well prepared, and it really makes it a lot of fun. And as Mr. Hyde said, some of the stuff I told him was even the truth. So,
Not a lot, but some.
not much of it, but yeah, they really made me feel good that these are kids that are part of our big family here, so to speak.
Nice.
And, that made me feel good.
Very good. And finally, State Board of Education member Charlotte McGuire We invited her to come to Piqua City Schools probably a little over a month ago, and she met with myself and the cabinet, and we just talked. We just talked to her about some of the challenges we were facing, some of the good things that were happening, some of the things we were struggling with. She was very attentive, listened very well, spent considerable time with us. She has seen our report card data. She made contact with me and said she was very pleased with what she saw and is interested in learning some more. Also wants to know what's happening in her email, she said, beyond the report card. I think she really enjoyed the visit that she had with us, and we're excited to have her come back. She's going to spend a whole day in the district around September 30th, I believe. She'll be going to the high school, she'll be going to Piqua Central Intermediate, and coming here at Washington Primary. She'll spend time with me first in the cabinet, then she'll start coming and touring the buildings. And it's just great to have somebody show interest from the state level in what we're doing and to notice some of the great programming and things we've put in place. So we're excited to invite her back to the district, and I'll update everybody in terms of what happens after that visit. And that's it for me.
Want to move on to superintendent's agenda then?
Sure. I'd like to recommend the board approval of the attached list of equipment for disposal or sale and removal from the inventory of Piqua City Schools. Again, technology department goes through and they take everything that they can out of that. They've got boxes of all kinds of gizmos and gadgets that they can use to rebuild any kind of technology pieces we have. If it's not reusable, then of course we dispose of it. I'd like to recommend board approval of the attached list of donations. I'm very thankful to the people in the community and the donations that they give to help with our student programming. And we'd like to recommend board approval of the attached overnight extended student trip for the PHS wrestling team.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions of the superintendent? I have a motion to approve the superintendent's agenda.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The superintendent agenda has been adopted. Moving on to the personnel agenda, Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Lyons has some special guests he would like to announce that are here this evening real quick, and then he'll move on to the agenda.
So we have our guests from Edison State Community College from the Intro to Ed classes this evening that are here with us. Hopefully future teachers and who will be coming back to see us for jobs one of these days. And they're here with their instructor, who is also my beautiful wife, Kelly Lyons, who's in the front row. So thank you for being here this evening, and make sure you get all your signatures before you leave, right?
Welcome. Thanks for coming. I know it's not the most exciting time.
On the personnel agenda, just a couple of items to talk about here. Notice there are a few resignations from our transportation, some of our civil service types of positions. In some of those cases, we have people who are moving internally, so they see an opportunity to go from one position to another, and that happened in transportation recently, and it's a great opportunity for some of our folks who are kind of dually trained. Also with that, Beth King's done a great job of keeping that pool of drivers filled and continue to train people. With that, I would also like to tell you that we're offering the civil service exam again on October 17th in order to continue to build that pool of people. Once we have jobs that open up, we'll have folks that we can bring in for the interview process. So that'll be October 17th at 6 p.m. at the Board of Education office, and people can pick up the application for the civil service exam at the board office, and that needs to be done within the next 2 weeks.
Which
So
particular one?
we're going to test it for everything.
Everything. So that includes what?
That'll be the food service, that'll be transportation and custodial. So, and I would encourage people, if they're interested, to take multiple exams. There's an hour and a half, and there's plenty of time to be able to do that as well. So that helps us build that pool back up so that we can have eligible people for positions. At this point, everything else on the personnel agenda, I would like to just point out our volunteer list. Once again, we have amazing people. If you come out in these buildings on a daily basis, you see people working with our kids from the community, and it's outstanding. So thank you to those people. And for folks who want to become volunteers, stop out. We'll take your fingerprints, and we'll get you on the list for approval. So outside of that, I recommend board approval of the personnel agenda as presented.
I have a motion to approve this personnel agenda.
So moved?
I have a second.
Second.
I didn't ask anybody. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Will the treasurer call the roll, please?
Mr. Bostic.
Aye.
Mr. Height.
Aye.
Mr. Luby.
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson.
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio.
Aye. Moving on to new business. And I kind of jumped the gun here a little bit earlier on, but
Mr. Hiddle, do you want to?
Mr. Riddle or?
What we're asking for tonight is approval for the superintendent and I to go out and request RFQs, which are requests for qualifications from energy companies that provide energy services. Basically trying to see if there's any projects, things available in the district that we can do to decrease our energy usage and save us money. At the same time, we reduce the money we're spending on utilities that could be paid, that would help pay for those kind of projects that happen. So we actually had Honeywell help us through that conversation a little bit about what we need to do if we're looking at doing a House Bill 264 kind of project, and what all the steps were, and we had a list, our 5-year list, our 10-year list of things that we wanted to get done, and one of those big projects was to fix the control system at the junior high. And so that's part of this process, that our hope is that we'll be able to have enough energy savings that we'll be able to pay for the controls at the junior high, as well as a list of other things that we're going to do with, like, water conservation, lighting, changing things over to LED lighting, saves money as well. And so that total package at this point is estimated to be about $1.9 million, but all that money would be paid for through it's called a Q-Scooby kind of debt issuance that we'll be able to get at 0% interest, and we'll use the savings that we get from switching all these energy conservation things over to be paying for that debt. So that's the big plan about what's happening. Tonight we're just trying to get qualifications and make sure that we select the right people that we're doing business with, and then we'll keep moving through that process and keep you updated. But that's sort of the whole thing in a nutshell.
And Honeywell, if I'm right, they will almost guarantee that you get the savings that they say that you will get.
Correct.
If you don't get the savings, they cut you a check and pay the difference. So it's a guarantee.
So I want to talk about how this all came in about, too.
Yep.
When Mr. Thompson came aboard, he said the city manager had reached out to us and said, hey, why don't Mr. Thompson and I and the board president and the mayor meet for lunches? Because we all have the common interest of what is best for Piqua. And so we started a meeting. We started talking to the city manager about the improvements we're going to have to do to the buildings. City manager says, well, why don't you go talk to Honeywell? They'll come up with this plan. And this would have never come about without the help of the city, without our meetings, and it just shows you a line of communication can save you millions of dollars. And I commend superintendent and the city manager for arranging these meetings, and I have found them very, very beneficial, and it's been very helpful.
A lot of great ideas from there. And what's confirming through all this is they've done quite a study on our district, and they found that our brand-new 3 buildings, our elementary buildings, far exceed the expectations of schools for efficiency. So it's a great thing to share with the community that our 3 new buildings are doing very well when you compare them to even other districts and what they have. The high school is doing pretty well, but we have some work we have to do there to make that in a really good range. Our junior high is the one that's the farthest out of sync right now, and knowing that, we want to make sure that we go through and make those corrections so that we can, again, bring everything back to where it needs to be, and we can realize those savings and really make sure we're paying the right amount in our utilities. So it's been interesting work to go through.
Jeremy, could you real quickly, in a nutshell, explain what the House Bill program is so people know how that's being funded?
Yeah, the House Bill basically allows school districts to take out unvoted debt as long as there's a way to pay for it through energy conservation. So that's the whole idea here, is that we have this $1.9 million worth of project that needs to be completed. Is there enough savings by the time you finish installing and putting in these new systems that it'll pay for the bill? And so, again, like they had said, that these companies tend to offer guarantees, so that if they say that you're going to save $200,000 a year, you know that you can go and take a loan out for $200,000 a year for up to 15 years and be able to pay that money back to be able to pay that debt off. So we went through and done those analysis, and that's where we've come up with, we can afford to do the $1.9 million and still be able to save that money and not really cost taxpayers anything that they weren't already paying. They were just paying it to the utility company. Now we're going to turn around and upgrade this equipment and be able to save that money in the long run. And through all this process, I mean, we found different things out. I mean, it's been definitely eye-opening to go through all that and realize some of the things that we've done right when we look at these buildings. I mean, it's the new buildings for sure are really efficient, and there's not lots of energy squeezing that we can do because they are in the top tier, which we knew when we got the gold rating for the LEED. So just it reified that our utility bills are matching up with the fact that we built efficient buildings. So
It was interesting last Friday when we sat in the meeting with the engineers from Honeywell, all that they had gone through and the offers that they've got for, you need to do this or this or this. And to guarantee a savings is,
it's
Basically
basically
free money.
risk-free.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
and I think that's a good way to explain that to our voters, is that that's, we're actually paying ourselves to do this program.
That's a win.
but our voters also need to understand there's more work to be done,
Oh,
and that there's,
Well, there's one
particularly in the
example.
high school and the junior high, there's millions and millions of dollars of work that have to be done. And even though those buildings don't seem old, you have to realize if you have a 37-year-old house, you're going to have to do things to it, and that's where we are with the high school and a 20-year-old building with a junior high school.
I mean, that's one of the things that we found out in this process too, and with Sean coming on board, the chiller at the junior high is going to need replaced this summer. So it's going to have to happen. It's nickel and diming us. The generator is going to need replaced. That there was a $7,000 to just put an exhaust system on it. So we're looking into what does it cost to put a new generator there versus that's as old as the building is versus can we just buy a new generator for not much more money than that. So we're looking into all those things before we just put that kind of money into fixing the exhaust on the generator that is just there for the just in case. So, I mean, the chiller, though, is going to be a big deal, but it's going to end up also producing some energy savings, but it has to be stretched out over a longer period of time because the price of that's so high. So it wasn't included in the $1.9 million figure because it doesn't, the payoff on that cost, the energy consumption wasn't high enough. But it's just something we're going to have to do. But it's sort of nice to be able to put that chiller in at the same time you're putting the controls in, and just basically we're going to have a new HVAC system put into the junior high building next summer.
I have a motion to approve the item, the new business item.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on. I have nothing for the hearing of the public of non-agenda items. And I have another item. We are having a special meeting on Tuesday with an executive session at the board office at 3:30. And then our next regular meeting will be October 19th at Piqua Central.
And I won't be there.
Okay, very good.
You guys.
Our meeting is adjourned.